The great hall of the galactic Concord smelled of burning incense and old pride. 53 species filled the curved benches, their robes shining under floating lights. At the center of the chamber, a slow-turning hologram showed the latest weapon of the Vasari Dominion, a warship the size of a small moon, covered in green crystal armor. The Vasari delegates clapped their long hands together. The Korthan generals roared in approval. The Yuan-Tai lifted their silver staffs in salute. High Speaker Olin stood tall above them all. His 3 eyes glowed with quiet pride. He spoke of strength. He spoke of order. He spoke of the long peace that the strong empires had given to the galaxy. His voice rolled across the chamber like a drum. Every word was made to remind the smaller species of their place. In the lowest row near the back sat the human delegation. Only 4 chairs, only 4 humans. Ambassador Myra Das sat in the middle of them, her hands folded in her lap. Her hair had turned silver during her 30 years in this chamber. Her face carried no anger, only patience. When the boasting ended, Olin turned his 3 eyes toward her. "And what does the youngest member bring to us today?" he said. "The children of the conquered." Soft laughter ran through the hall. The Korthan delegates banged their tails on the floor in mockery. Even some of the smaller species joined in, hopping to be noticed by the strong. Myra Das rose slowly. She did not raise her voice. She did not show pain. She only opened a small device on her wrist and let a faint signal play through the chamber speakers. A long, low hum, then a second hum, then silence. "This signal," she said, "came from the far edge of the galaxy 3 weeks ago. We have studied it. We believe something old is waking up out there. We ask the conquered to send scouts. We ask for caution." The chamber fell quiet for a moment. Then High Speaker Olin smiled, slow and cold. "Caution," he repeated. "From the species that still uses metal hulls. From the species whose largest ship is smaller than a Vasari training boat. You wish to teach us caution." The laughter returned, louder this time. A Korthan general stood up and pointed at Myra with one clawed finger. "Sit down, little human," he barked. "Let the real powers handle the galaxy." Myra Das did not flinch. She looked at Olin for a long moment. Then she lowered her head with a small, polite nod and sat back down. Her 3 companions did not move. Their faces stayed calm. One of them, a young woman named Hala, gripped the edge of her seat very tightly. Myra reached over and placed a soft hand on her wrist. "Not yet," Myra whispered. "Not here." The session ended an hour later. The strong empires left first, walking in long, proud lines. The smaller species followed. The humans walked out last. No one looked at them. Far away from that grand hall, on a quiet station orbiting a forgotten gas giant, Captain Ronan Hale stood by a wide window. The station was simple from the outside. Gray metal, old solar panels. Nothing that would make any passing alien ship stop and look twice. That was the point. A young officer came up beside him with a data slate. The broadcast from the Concord had just ended. The officer's jaw was tight. "They laughed at her again, sir," the officer said. "They laughed at the warning." Ronan kept his eyes on the gas giant. The bands of orange and brown moved slowly across its face. He had been watching this same view for 11 years now. He knew every shape in those clouds. "Did the speaker say anything new?" Ronan asked. "No, sir, the same words. Children, primitive, weak." Ronan let out a small breath. It was almost a laugh, but not quite. There was no joy in it, only something tired and patient. 200 years, he said softly. 200 years they have called us that." The officer waited. He had served under Ronan for 6 years. He had learned that the captain spoke when he was ready and not before. Ronan turned away from the window. He walked across the small command room toward a simple metal door. He placed his hand on a scanner. The scanner read his palm, his bones, his blood. The door opened with a quiet hiss. Behind it was a long tunnel of pale white light. The tunnel did not belong to a small, forgotten station. It went deep, very deep, into something far larger than the station itself. Ronan stopped at the edge of the tunnel and looked back at the young officer. "Tell the crew to prepare," he said. "For what, sir?" Ronan thought for a moment. He searched for the right word. The galaxy had laughed at humanity for so long. The galaxy had built its proud empires on the belief that humans were small, soft, and slow. The galaxy had never once asked why a species so weak had been allowed to join the conquered at all. The galaxy had never wondered what humans had been doing in the dark, alone, for 200 quiet years. He looked at the young officer and gave him a small, calm smile. Soon, Ronan said. That was all. Far across the galaxy, at the edge of a thin spiral arm, a single distant star flickered. Then it dimmed. Then it grew darker still. Slowly, gently, as if something vast had passed in front of it, the star went out. No alarm sounded. No empire noticed. The light from that dying star would not reach the conquered for many years. But something had begun to move, and it was hungry. 3 months passed. The galaxy forgot the warning. On the Corthan homeworld, a great festival was being held. Red banners hung from every tower. Warriors marched through the streets in golden armor. The Corthan emperor stood on a high balcony and watched his 1,000-ship fleet rise into the sky. They were going on a training run, deep into the outer arm. The fleet was the largest in the galaxy. Every Corthan child knew its name. Every Corthan mother sang of its power. The fleet jumped into deep space. Their crystal engines hummed. Their gun ports glowed with stored fire. Their commanders laughed and traded jokes across the channels. They were sure of themselves. They were the strong. When they came out of the jump, the stars in front of them looked wrong. Too dim, too still. The lead commander frowned at his readings. There was something ahead of them, something very large, but his sensors could not lock on to it. The shape kept slipping away like smoke. Then the dark moved. It was not a ship. Not in any way the Corthans understood ships. It was alive. A long, curved body longer than a moon, made of something like black skin and folded shadow. It opened a single eye, and that eye burned with cold blue light. Behind it, 100 more shapes drifted out of the dark. Then 1,000. Then more. The Corthan commander did not even finish his order. The first shape pulled in a slow breath, and a beam of empty silence shot from its mouth. The lead Corthan ship simply stopped existing. No fire, no explosion. The hull and the crew and the engines were just gone, as if they had never been built. The fleet panicked. They fired everything they had. Their proud crystal weapons lit the dark like a storm. The beams hit the shapes and faded into nothing, like rain on a stone wall. The shapes did not even slow down. They drifted closer, calm and patient, and one by one, the 1,000 ships of the Corthan Empire vanished. It took less than an hour. The news reached the Corthan capital before the day ended. The emperor heard it on his balcony, with the festival music still playing in the streets below. He fell to his knees. The music kept going for a few more minutes before someone finally turned it off. Word spread across the galaxy. The strong empires gathered in fear. The Vasari Dominion sent its elite warriors. 500 ships, the finest the conquered had ever seen, jumped to the same region. They wore green crystal armor. Their pilots had trained for 200 years for moments like this. They went in proud. They never came out. The shapes from the dark, now called the Hollow Ones by the few who had seen them and lived, kept moving. Slow, steady, hungry. They did not chase. They did not hurry. They drifted from system to system, and where they passed, the stars went dim. Whole worlds fell silent. No screams reached the conquered. The Hollow Ones did not seem to allow even that. On a small Yuan-Tai transport far from the front lines, Warden Tail pressed his green-scaled face against a window. His homeworld burned below. The fires moved in strange patterns, as if something was feeding on the heat itself. His wife and his 3 young ones were down there. He had been off-world for 1 week. Only 1 week. A young soldier beside him was crying. Tail placed a heavy clawed hand on the boy's shoulder. He had no words. He had never been good with words. He only watched as his world grew dark. The transport jumped before the Hollow Ones reached the upper sky. Tail was one of the few Yuan-Tai who would survive that day. In the great hall of the conquered, the chamber was full again, but the mood was nothing like before. The proud benches of the Vasari were half empty. The Corthan seats were nearly silent. Many smaller species had not come at all, too afraid to leave their homes. High Speaker Olin stood at the center, but he did not look tall today. His 3 eyes were dim. His voice cracked when he spoke. "We must combine our remaining forces," he said. "We must call upon every species in the Concord, every weapon, every ship, every soul." He turned his head, slow and stiff. He looked at every delegation in turn. He asked each one what they could give. The smaller species offered what little they had. A few hundred ships, a few thousand pilots. The numbers were sad and small. The hollow ones had already eaten 10 times that much in a single battle. Then his 3 eyes landed on the human row. Ambassador Myra Das stood up. She wore the same simple gray robe as always. Her hands were still folded. "What can the humans give?" Olin asked. There was no mockery in his voice this time, only tired desperation. The chamber waited. Myra Das looked at him for a long moment. Then she spoke, gently, like a mother speaking to a frightened child. "We are preparing," she said. Some delegate near the back made a small sound, a half laugh, half sob. The old habit of mocking humans was still there, even now, even in this hour. A few others joined in, weak and bitter. They could not help themselves. The galaxy had laughed at humanity for so long that laughing was almost the only way they knew how to face them. Myra did not respond to the laughter. She did not even seem to hear it. She only looked at High Speaker Olin with the same patient eyes. "We are preparing," she said again. "Soon you will see." She sat down. Olin opened his mouth to speak. Then he closed it. He had nothing left to say. That night, while the proud empires of the Concord wept for their dead, the humans worked in silence. And far below the surface of a forgotten dead world, deep beneath layers of gray rock, something enormous began to wake up. Deep beneath the dead world of Varus 6, the rock began to hum. It was a soft sound at first, almost like a heartbeat. Then the hum grew. The gray stone walls of an ancient cave system started to shake loose dust that had not moved in 200 years. The cave was not really a cave. It only looked like one from the surface. A small opening, half buried in dust, easy to miss. Any passing alien scout would scan it once and move on, just another lifeless rock. But under that dust, behind those gray walls, the rock split open. Not from earthquakes, from doors. Massive doors, slow and silent, sliding apart along seams that had been hidden for 2 centuries. The doors revealed a hollow space so large that a Vasari flagship could have been parked inside it sideways and still had room to spare. And inside that space, ships were waiting. Admiral Sanya Brett walked along a high metal walkway. Below her stretched row after row of pale silver hulls. The ships were long and smooth, with no visible weapons, no painted markings, no proud names. They looked almost gentle, almost soft. Anyone who did not know better would not call them warships at all. Sanya knew better. She was a tall woman with short gray hair and a quiet face. She had been an admiral for 16 years, but the galaxy had never heard her name. The Conquered did not know she existed. Her rank was not on any human record that aliens could find. She had been hidden, the way her ships had been hidden, for almost her whole life. Captain Ronan Hale waited for her at the end of the walkway. He bowed his head. "All 12 yards report ready, Admiral," he said. "Varus 6, Tellin, Ordmeyer, the deep water yards on Hesh, the buried yards under the dead suns, all of them." Sanya nodded slowly. She looked down at the rows of ships. "How many?" she asked. Ronan paused. The number was hard to say out loud even now. 80,000 main vessels, Admiral. 200,000 support ships, carriers, medical ships, builders, long-range scouts. Sanya did not speak for a long moment. Her eyes moved across the silver hulls. 200 years of work. 200 years of small human ships flying out into the dark, picking through the wreckage of old wars that the conquered empires had forgotten. 200 years of taking apart enemy weapons that fell into human space. 200 years of asking the question the conquered had never bothered to ask. Why had the old galaxy died? What had killed the empires that came before the Vasari? What had the ancients feared? The conquered empires had never asked those questions. They had been too busy boasting about their crystal armor and their strong tails and their 3 eyes. They had laughed at the humans for digging through old battlefields like beggars. The humans had not been begging. The humans had been learning. "They are coming faster," Ronan said quietly. "The hollow ones. 3 more systems gone since this morning. The Yuan-Tai inner colonies are next." Sanya turned and faced him. Her eyes were steady. "Show me the medical wings." Ronan looked surprised for a small moment. Then he understood and a soft warmth crossed his face. Of course she would ask for that first. Not the weapons, not the engines, the medical wings. He led her down a long lift. The lift opened on a wide deck full of soft white light. Rows and rows of healing beds stretched into the distance. Each bed had a small machine arm above it, designed to work on bodies of many shapes. Some beds were small, sized for the young of smaller species. Some were curved for the long bodies of the Yuan-Tai. Some had cooling pads for the Korthans, whose blood ran hot. Every species in the conquered had a place ready for them here. Sanya walked along the rows. She placed a hand on one of the beds and held it there. "How many can we treat at once?" she asked. "Across the full fleet, Admiral, around 40 million. Sanya let out a slow breath. She closed her eyes for a moment. 40 million was not enough, not for what was coming. The hollow ones had already killed many times that, but 40 million was a beginning. 40 million was a promise. "Good," she said softly. "It is good." She opened her eyes and turned to Ronan. "And the children." Ronan smiled, a small real smile this time. 3 full ships, Admiral, just for them. Soft rooms, quiet rooms, toys from 100 worlds, foods our chefs have studied for years, even the smell of home where we could find it. The Korthan young like the smell of warm sand. The Yuan-Tai young like the smell of river water. We have it all ready. Sanya nodded. Her throat felt tight. She looked away for a moment, blinking. "Then we are ready," she said. They walked back up to the main deck. Through a great window, the silver fleet stretched out in the soft light, silent and waiting. Beyond the window, the rock walls of the hidden yard glowed with the heat of starting engines. Sanya turned to a small panel on the wall. She placed her palm on it. A clear voice, calm and old, spoke from the system. "Admiral Brett, final order required." Sanya looked at Ronan. He gave her a small nod. "Open the gates," she said. "All of them, every yard, every world, bring them all out." The voice answered, confirmed. Across 12 hidden yards on 12 quiet worlds the rock split open. Dead suns flared as the gates within them swung wide. Old craters cracked apart. Buried mountains rose. And from each one, silver shapes began to rise into the dark, slow at first, then faster, a tide of pale light flowing up from places no one in the conquered had ever thought to look. The galaxy had never noticed humanity building. The galaxy was about to notice everything else. Warden Tail had not slept in 4 days. The refugee station around him smelled of burnt fuel and old fear. Thousands of survivors from a dozen species crowded its halls. Yuan-Tai mothers held their young clothes. Korthan warriors sat with empty hands, their armor cracked and dull. Small Felari children cried for parents who would never come back. Tail walked through them all with a heavy heart. He had been given a small command here, 3 damaged ships and a few hundred soldiers. It was not much, but it was something to hold on to. He stood at a viewport now, looking out at the cold black space outside. The station was hidden in a thick dust cloud, far from the main routes. The conquered hoped the hollow ones would not find it. Tail was not so sure. He was about to turn away when the dust cloud outside changed. It was a small thing at first, a soft glow deep inside the dust. Tail frowned. He pressed his green-scaled face against the cold glass. The glow grew. It grew brighter. Then a second glow appeared, a third, a fourth. Within a minute, the whole dust cloud was lit from within as if a sun was being born inside it. Then the dust began to part. Tail had seen many things in his long life. He had seen Vasari flagships rise out of jump space. He had seen Korthan War moons crack open with their guns. He had seen his own homeworld burn, but he had never seen anything like what came out of that dust. The first ship was longer than 10 Vasari flagships placed end to end. Its hull was pale silver, smooth and unmarked. It had no painted symbols, no flags, no proud markings. It moved with a soft, easy grace as if the dust did not slow it at all. Behind it came another, then 10 more, then 100, then so many that Tail stopped counting. His station's sensors began to scream warnings. Then they went silent. They had failed. There were too many ships to track. The system had given up. A young Felari officer ran up beside Tail, her small ears flat against her head in fear. "Warden, the ships are not in our records. They match nothing. Nothing in the Concord database. Are they more hollow ones? Are they coming for us?" Tail did not answer. He could not. His throat was tight, because he had seen on the side of one of the silver ships as it passed close to the station window a small marking, a tiny shape painted in pale blue, the shape of a planet with a single moon, the shape of Earth. He let out a long, slow breath. Then he laughed. It was a strange laugh, half shock, half something close to crying. "They are not coming for us," he whispered. "They are coming for them." In the great hall of the Concord, the news arrived all at once. Every screen lit up, every channel filled with images, hundreds of feeds from 100 worlds, silver ships pouring out of dust clouds, silver ships rising from dead moons, silver ships passing through the rings of forgotten gas giants, some of them so large that the cameras could not fit them in a single frame. High Speaker Olin sat on his throne world, watching the feeds with his 3 eyes. His ceremonial staff lay on the floor at his feet. He had dropped it when the first image came through, and he had not picked it up. He could not seem to lift his hand. His old advisor stood beside him, equally still. "Speaker," the advisor said softly, "those ships, they are human." Olin did not speak. "All of them, Speaker, every one. The signals confirm it." Still Olin did not speak. 200 years, the advisor whispered. "They built all of this in 200 years, while we mocked them." Olin finally moved. He turned his head slow, like a man waking from a long dream. He looked at his advisor. His 3 eyes were wet. "While we mocked them," he repeated. In the council chamber, Ambassador Myra Das stood once again. The room was full, but no one was speaking. Every delegate was staring at the central hologram, which now showed a live image of the human fleet gathering near the broken edge of Uintai space. The image shifted slowly, panning across endless rows of silver hulls. Myra waited until every face turned toward her. She did not need to ask for attention this time. Attention came on its own. She placed both her hands on the speaking stand. Her voice, when it came, was as calm and quiet as it had ever been, but the chamber heard every word. "For 200 years, she said, you called us weak, you called us children, you called us slow and primitive and small, and every year we sat in the back of this hall and listened. Every year we said nothing. Every year we went home and kept working." She paused, no one spoke, no one breathed. "You believed our silence was shame," Myra said. "It was not shame, it was patience. We were not hiding because we were afraid of you. We were hiding because we did not want to scare you." A long silence filled the chamber. "We were never weak," she said softly. "We were waiting." She let those words rest in the air. Then she looked across the chamber, at every delegation, at every species, at the half-empty seats of the proud Korthans and the broken eyes of the once mighty Vasari. Her face was not proud. Her face was sad. "Now," she said, "the hollow ones have come, and the empires of the conquered cannot stop them. We can, we will." She stepped back from the stand. "Let us begin." The chamber stayed silent for a long time after she sat down. No one mocked. No one laughed. The only sound was the soft hum of the central hologram, where, on 1,000 worlds, silver ships kept rising into the dark. The dying world was called Asen. Once it had been a green moon, full of forests and small singing creatures. Now its sky was gray and its oceans were boiling. The Hollow Ones had been feeding on it for 3 days. Around the moon, 200 of the long dark shapes drifted in lazy circles, their single blue eyes half closed, slow and full. Then the Silver Fleet arrived. It did not arrive the way other fleets arrived. There were no jump flashes, no loud entry, no warning ripples in space. The silver ships simply appeared in long, calm lines as if they had always been there and the universe had only just remembered to show them. 8,000 main vessels in the first wave. Behind them, more. The Hollow Ones turned their heads. For the first time in 1,000,000 years, the ancient predators paused. Their slow blue eyes opened wide. Their long bodies coiled, uncertain. They had eaten through Korthan crystal and Vasari armor and Yuan-Tai stone like dry leaves. They did not know these silver shapes. They did not know what humans were. They were about to learn. Captain Ronan Hale sat in the front of his ship, the Quiet Tide. His hands rested on the soft, glowing controls. His face was calm. Around him, his crew worked in silence. There was no shouting. There was no fear. They had trained for this their whole lives. Their parents had trained for this. Their grandparents had trained for this. 6 generations of humans hidden in the dark, waiting for this single hour. "All ships," Ronan said, his voice soft over the channel. "Hold the line. Remember what we are. We are not here to win. We are here to protect." 1,000 human voices answered as one. "Yes, Captain." The Hollow Ones moved first. They opened their mouths and breathed out their silent beams of empty space, the same beams that had erased the Korthan fleet in an hour. The beams hit the silver ships. And the silver ships did not break. Pale fields shimmered around the human hulls. The empty beams slid across them and faded into nothing. The humans had spent 200 years studying every old battlefield in the galaxy. They had found tiny hints, old ruins, strange notes left by species long dead, pieces of a puzzle that the proud conquered had been too busy boasting to gather. The humans had gathered every piece. The humans had built shields the Hollow Ones could not crack. Then the humans answered. It was not a roar, it was a whisper. Across the Silver Fleet, soft beams of folded light reached out toward the Hollow Ones. The beams looked almost gentle. They did not flash. They did not boom. They just touched the dark shapes lightly, the way a hand might touch a sick animal. And the Hollow Ones came apart. Not in fire, not in pieces. They simply unfolded slowly like paper being smoothed flat. Their long bodies came undone, layer by layer, until there was nothing left but quiet drifting dust. The conquered ships watching from far away could not understand what they were seeing. The Vasari sensors recorded the battle and then refused to play it back, as if the system itself did not believe its own data. Warden Tail, on his hidden station, watched with his green-scaled hands pressed flat against the glass. He had seen 1,000 battles in his life. He had never seen one fought without shouting. The Hollow Ones tried to flee. They turned their long bodies and pulled in their starlight and dove for deep space. They did not get far. The human fleet moved with them, smooth and patient. Younger pilots in smaller ships circled close, herding the dark shapes back. Captain Ronan Hale's voice was calm in their ears. "Steady, do not chase. Let them come to you. Remember to breathe." He sounded like a teacher in a quiet classroom. Not a warrior, not a killer, a teacher. One by one, the Hollow Ones unfolded into dust. 200 of them gone within the hour. And then something strange happened. A few of the dark shapes did not unfold. They drifted, broken and slow, their blue eyes dim. They were not dead. They were only hurt in some deep way that even the humans did not yet understand. A Korthan general, watching from the far edge on a conquered scout ship, leaned forward. "Finish them," he muttered to himself, an old Korthan habit. "Finish the wounded enemy." But the human fleet did not finish them. Instead, smaller white ships moved out from the silver lines, medical ships. Their hulls glowed soft and warm. They drifted close to the broken hollow ones and reached out with long, careful arms. They did not attack. They studied. They scanned. They tried to understand. A young human medic on the lead medical ship spoke into the channel with a shaking voice. Admiral, they have minds. There is something inside, something almost like fear. They are not just hungry beasts, they are something we do not fully understand yet. Admiral Sanya Brett listened from her command ship. Her gray hair was pulled back from her tired face. She closed her eyes for a long moment. "Bring them in," she said softly. "Carefully, do not hurt them more. We will find out what they are." A Korthan officer on a conquered channel almost screamed. "You are saving them. They killed billions. They burned my world." Sanya opened her eyes. Her voice was gentle, but it filled every channel in the system. "Yes," she said, "they killed many, and we will not become them. Killing the rest of them when they are broken and afraid would not bring back what they took. It would only teach the galaxy that the strong always finish the weak. We will not teach the galaxy that lesson. Not today. Not ever." The conquered channels went silent. Far away on his throne world, High Speaker Olin watched the medical ships pull the broken hollow ones into their soft white bays. His old advisor stood beside him, weeping without sound. Olin did not weep. He only stared, his three eyes wide, as the silver fleet of the Laftet species saved the lives of the very monsters that had nearly ended the galaxy. He understood then, for the first time in his long, proud life, what real power looked like. It looked like mercy. The galaxy held its breath for a long time after Asen. The remaining hollow ones, those who had not come to the dying moon, drifted back into the deep dark from where they had come. They moved slow and quiet, like wounded animals returning to a den. They did not attack again. They only watched from far away with their dim blue eyes. The humans had broken something in them that no weapon ever could. The humans had shown them mercy, and the hollow ones did not know what to do with that. The Silver Fleet did not chase them. The Silver Fleet stayed where it was needed. For weeks after the battle, the human medical ships moved across the galaxy. They went to every burned world. They went to every refugee station. They went to every broken empire, no matter how proud that empire had once been. The Korthans, whose great festival fleet had been the first to fall, watched in silence as silver ships landed in their crater fields and unloaded food, water, doctors, builders. The humans worked without speaking much. They simply did what needed to be done. A Korthan child, no taller than a human knee, walked up to a tall human medic on a ruined street. The child held out a small toy, a cracked carving of a Korthan warrior. The medic knelt down and took the toy gently in both hands. She did not laugh at it. She did not throw it away. She held it as if it was the most important thing in the galaxy. Then she gave the child a small loaf of warm bread and a soft blanket, and she walked on. Warden Tail saw this. He had come down to the surface to help in any way he could, and he had been watching the silver ships at work for days. He stood at the edge of the street and finally let himself cry, his green-scaled face shining with tears. In the great hall of the conquered, the chamber filled once again, but this time it looked different. The proud benches of the strong empires were no longer at the front. The chairs had been moved. Every species sat at the same level now. Even the smallest delegations, the ones who had always been pushed to the back, sat in the open ring at the center. High Speaker Olin walked into the chamber slowly. He no longer wore his ceremonial robes. He no longer carried his staff. He wore a simple gray cloak, the kind a common Vasari might wear. His three eyes were tired, but they were also clear, as if a long, heavy weight had finally been lifted from him. He walked to the center of the chamber where Ambassador Myra Da stood waiting. Her three companions stood beside her. The whole chamber watched. Olin stopped in front of Myra, and then, for the first time in the long history of the Vasari Dominion, a high speaker bowed. Not a small, polite bow. A full bow, his three eyes pressed nearly to the floor, his hands open at his sides. He held the bow for a long time. The chamber stayed silent. When he finally rose, his voice was rough. "Forgive us," he said. Myra Das looked at him with kind eyes. She did not gloat. She did not smile in triumph. She only stepped forward and gently placed a hand on his shoulder. "There is nothing to forgive," she said. "There is only what we do next." Olin's eyes filled with water. He nodded. "Then teach us," he whispered. "Teach us how to be what you are." Myra shook her head softly. "No," she said. "We will not teach you to be like us. Every species has its own gifts. The galaxy is not better when everyone is the same. We will only ask one thing of the conquered from this day forward. When the small voice speaks, listen. That is all. Just listen." Olin nodded again, and again, unable to speak. In the back of the chamber, Warden Tail stood quietly. He had come as the new representative of the broken Yuan-Tai. He watched Myra Das with an awe he could not put into words. Beside him, a Korthan officer leaned over and spoke softly. "I do not understand them, Tail. They had this power for 200 years. They could have ruled us all. Why did they not? Why did they wait? Why did they hide?" Tail thought about it for a long moment. He remembered the human medic kneeling for the small Korthan child. He remembered Admiral Brett's voice saying, "We will not become them." He remembered the silver ships, so calm, so quiet, never boasting, never demanding thanks. "Because they did not want to rule us," Tail said softly. "They only wanted us to be safe. They were waiting for the day they would be needed. That is the only reason they grew strong, not to take, only to give." The Korthan officer was silent for a while. "I do not know what to do with that," he said at last. Tail smiled, a small tired smile. "Neither do I. We will learn." Far above the chamber on the deck of the Quiet Tide, Captain Ronan Hale stood by a wide window. The galaxy spread out before him, full of stars, full of broken worlds slowly healing, full of small lives starting again. Beside him, Admiral Sanya Brett stood in silence. She had not spoken for a long time. "Was it worth it, Admiral?" Ronan asked softly. 200 years of hiding, 200 years of being laughed at, 200 years of letting them think we were nothing." Sanya looked out at the stars for a long moment. "Worth it," she said. "Yes, they are alive, Ronan. They are alive and they are afraid of us, and that fear will fade, and what will be left is something better than fear. They will trust us, slowly, over time. We will earn that trust the same way we built these ships, quietly, patiently." Ronan nodded. "Now they see us," he said. "Yes," she said, "now they see us." Across the galaxy, on 1,000 worlds, alien children fell asleep that night under blankets given to them by humans. In the dark places between stars, the surviving hollow ones drifted, dim and quiet, no longer hungry. In the great hall of the conquered, 53 species sat together at one level for the first time in 10,000 years. And somewhere far beyond the edge of every map, in places no one had ever named, the universe itself seemed to pause. A long, slow shudder moved through the deep dark, the kind of shudder that comes when something ancient and watchful finally turns its head and sees, with full attention, that a new power has arrived. Not loud, not proud, but steady and patient and kind. And that was the moment everything changed.